Welcome to Profitable Women, a podcast for the female business owner who wants to build a profitable and sustainable business that aligns with their life. We will talk about the money stories impacting your decisions, financial strategies to grow your profits, and how to embrace your female superpowers. I'm your host, Sheila Hansen, certified public accountant, business mentor, and certified coach. As a wife, mom of 3, and business owner, I have spent the last 7 years supporting 6-figure business owners make confident financial decisions while raising my babies. After making the hard decision to leave my job at a public accounting firm when I had my oldest, I'm now on a mission to empower women to build wealth without sacrificing themselves. If you find yourself avoiding conversations about money, are burnt out from working all the time, wonder where your cash goes, or want to learn how to pay yourself 6 figures, you're in the right place. Remember, the information in this podcast is general in nature and for educational purposes only. For specific financial advice for your situation, please consult a professional. Now, with that out of the way, let's get to the show. Hey there, podcast listener. Welcome back to Profitable Women. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about the nuts and bolts of a financial system and why it's important to have this structure in place. I get it. Bookkeeping might not be your favorite thing, and maybe you shouldn't be the one doing it anyway. But I want to share with you the value that it provides when we have that system and structure in place. Because the really cool thing for accounting, to me at least, is that there's checks and balances. I can tell you if things are off because there are multiple ways that I can go in and make sure everything is posted the way it's supposed to be, or if something is missing. And because we implement this financial system and structure with our clients, I was able to find my client $14,000. So if you talk about return on investment, here we go. So if we think about the structure of a financial workflow, it should be from the beginning where the customer relationship starts all the way to how the cash makes it to the bank. And even you could think of it as how you go about paying your vendors as well. And so as early as we can identify in the sales process, we want there to be an accounting transaction that also goes along with that. So whether it's a invoice or collection of money, but let's just say this might look like we have a contract that's signed by the client, immediately an invoice is sent, or there's a reoccurring transaction created because they've agreed to that dollar amount that we're providing as value. And then there's some sort of confirmation that we have received payment before that work begins. Or if we're not collecting upfront, we want to make sure we receive payment before we have delivered on the project. And then the most important step that I get is not fun and probably you don't want to be doing, but it's that monthly reconciling to confirm that the funds that we thought we received, that we thought we collected, actually in fact made it to the bank. So for a business structure that has reoccurring contracts, I do challenge you to see whether each period really needs to be itemized out or whether you can set a flat fee. Something I see so common when business owners come to me is they're waiting to bill or collect from the customer because they need to see what is entailed in that project, what they're actually billing for. And so what happens when we do this is we do the work, then we send the invoice, and then we collect the payment. And so a long time might go by before we have received that cash from the customer. In that process, we maybe have expenses to pay associated with providing that service. And so let's try to set a flat fee for the value that we're providing related to this project. And know that sometimes we might win a little bit, sometimes we might lose a little bit, but each time we can keep adjusting and tweaking how we come up with that flat fee to know that it's a right enough amount for this project. And so what happens when we set those reoccurring contracts and those flat fee amounts is it streamlines the collection process. So we can easily set up something that we don't have to go in and do. It doesn't take our time to just collect from the customer. We don't have to send an invoice. our systems and structures can automatically do that. And we can automatically, on the back end, collect payment in that process as well, which I consider this to be a value add for our customers because that's one less thing that they have to do. They've already agreed to your service. They already know what the amount is going to be. Now you collecting that payment for them takes something off of their plate. So I want to dig into 2 examples today of how having systems in place saved our clients some real time and real money. The first example is I had a client who started with us, again, who was providing monthly services. She would then gather the data at the end of the month to create the monthly invoice for her client. She had to send those out to the clients. Some would then pay by check. Some would pay by PayPal. Some would be in Venmo. Some would pay right away. And others she would have to follow up or maybe even follow up multiple times before she got paid. She also had contractors and employees in this scenario that she had to pay during this time because, again, they were performing the work in the month that the services were provided to the clients, and she needed to pay them for their time. But in some situations, she was floating this cash for 45 to 60 days. If we think about it, the first 30 days goes by because we're providing that service. Then we send the invoice. Maybe if they do pay right away, it's still a couple days. We're now at 45 days from the beginning of when the service was provided or started. If it took them up to a month to pay, now we're at 60 days. And this method and process would take her team a whole day at the end of every month to pull the data, to get together, to send the invoices to the client. And then she would spend multiple hours throughout the month trying to track and manage the balance in her bank account because, again, payments were coming in at different times. She had to manage who had paid and who hadn't. She had to follow up with clients. So not only did it take a whole day for them to invoice, to come up with the amount that the clients needed to pay them, it took multiple hours throughout the month of her just managing where cash was and when it was potentially coming. So one thing that we implemented very quickly with her transitioning to work with us is that we revised all of her contracts so that they were a flat fee with an auto draw on the fee at the beginning of the month. So in the transition process, she allowed some flexibility with our clients, and we did partial payments because we were asking them to go from retroactively paying to then proactively paying for their service. Because again, her service was a service that once she had done it, she can't pull it back. A social media manager where every day she's posting for them. Once she's posted that, once she's provided that contact to them, she has no collateral on getting paid. She's at the whim of her clients just paying her. So we went to the beginning of the month. Services don't start until we receive payment. She gave a 2 to 3 month transition period where they were paying maybe like that month and a half month to get them caught up to prepay. But then within 3 months of this transition, the client was now spending very minimal time managing her cash throughout the month because within the first couple days of the month, she had already received in her bank account all of the cash for that month. And she could identify if there was some issue with one of the payments and could easily get it fixed very quickly. And then she could go in and pay or schedule to pay her bills for the rest of the month because the cash was sitting there. So something that was taking her a whole day at the end of the month, plus extra hours managing and stressing about, is there going to be cash to pay these upcoming expenses? Do I need to follow up? Have I missed a check getting deposited? Now, everything was in one place. Every client paid the same method. We weren't trying to track multiple balances of where cash was, whether it needed to be transferred back to the checking account. It was all in one place. It got deposited into her bank account. She knew exactly where it was, what amount to expect, and had it there so that she could then spend her time providing client service, providing additional value to the clients, coming up with new offers, and less administrative time on just determining what she was billing and how she was billing it and collecting it. So that's an example of how having a system in place can save you time on the back end. And this could also happen if you didn't have reoccurring projects. You could still do it with one-time offers where the payment is done upfront as part of the contract process. Like I said, contract signed, invoices sent. Before we begin and everything and get it into our schedule, we confirm that payment has been made. Shrinking that time is valuable for both you and your customers. Hey there, fellow female business owner. Are you tired of sifting through endless articles, resources, and scrolling social media just to find the nuggets of wisdom that actually apply to your journey? Well, I've got something just for you. When you join our weekly email list, you will receive a go-to resource with actionable tips, inspiring stories, and valuable insights tailored specifically for women entrepreneurs like you. Each week, we deliver a dose of empowerment straight to your inbox, covering everything from mastering your money mindset to navigating the ever-changing landscape. Join other like-minded women who are leveling up their business and living their dreams. Sign up for the weekly email today, and let's conquer the business world together. Head on over to the show notes and find the link for you to enter your email address to get started. You'll be the first to hear about upcoming masterclasses and have weekly action items to contribute to your success. Sign up today. Now, example 2 is a scenario where the client does have enough variables within the business that they do need to send out an invoice that's itemized specific to that client for that time period. So every month, they do send an invoice. But in this particular case, because we're sending that invoice and doing those reconciliations, the client had thought customer had paid for the month, they were caught up, and then it came to find out because we were going through and doing those double checks, because we could confirm that what we thought we received had made it or didn't make it to the bank, we were able to find a $14,000 invoice that had been created and just not sent. A simple never sent it to the client didn't pay because they didn't know about it. And had they known about it, they would have paid. Had we not had this invoice sitting there, this client would have lost out on $14,000 that they thought had been received because in their mind, that client was current. But because we had the records in the system to prove that they hadn't because the invoice was never sent to them, we were able to then send that invoice, the client could collect on it, and all because we had that system in place. So when we start working with business owners, one of the very first conversations we have and what we talk about is what is your process for payments? Where do you collect payments? How do you collect payments? Is it by checks? Is it by auto ACH withdrawals? Are you running credit cards through QuickBooks Payments, Stripe, Square? Is it a checkout on your website? Is it a contract with an invoice later on? What does that system look like? Where is all of the cash coming from? What method is it coming in? And we talk about that sales process of where does it make the most sense to have that cash value exchange happen in the process to protect both you and your cash flow. And so I know as I present these options to you, as I ask you, can you set a fixed fee? Can you get away from hourly billing? Is there possibly a different way that you could collect at least some of it up front? Your brain might be coming up with reasons as to why you can't implement these changes to your workflow. Oh, my customer would never go for that. Oh, this is the way it's always been. Oh, they wouldn't want to go about it that way. And I'm going to stop you right there because that is where the mindset work comes in. We have our financial system and a structure, and we have the mindset to go along with it. And if we flip those scripts, oh, my customer wouldn't want to do it that way, or they wouldn't want to give me their bank account information, or they wouldn't want to do this. What if you're actually taking things off of their plate? What if you could actually charge more because the value that you're providing to them is freeing up their time and energy. So they're not spending their time paying your bills or getting the email reminders, or it's not causing you to sit and ponder, ooh, was my service not worth this because they haven't paid their bill? No, maybe it's simply they haven't paid their bill because they haven't got around to paying your bill. How can we make that a value add to simplify the structure for them to get you paid and to get their deliverable or the service that they hired you to do quicker, easier, and streamline it for everyone? So this is so important because I see it so often with business owners that their money is kind of like all over the place. And no wonder they can't pinpoint where they're at or where they stand on certain things, because it's spread out all over and we have it coming in at different times and in different ways. So we can create a system that helps reduce our energy and our time and the stress that we have around our finances. And we could be like that first client where within 3 months, she sent me a message. You'll never believe it. I am done with all my financial decisions and actions for the whole month within 5 days of the month starting. I've collected all the money for my customers. I've scheduled and paid all my bills. Now I don't have to think about this at all until next month. How would that feel if you didn't have to think about the money coming in and money going out for a whole month at a time? And you just got to spend your time providing and creating value for your clients instead. Thank you so much for listening. And I am so glad you're here. We are going to continue diving into topics like this because it's so important that you have a space to learn. And I am so glad that you are willing to spend time digging into these topics with me. If there's ever a topic you're curious about, I encourage you to reach out and get in touch with me and share those ideas with me. I would love to do podcast episodes that are super meaningful to you and on topics that are on the top of your mind. So if you're ever wondering, does having a financial system in place actually give me a return on the investment that it takes to have that system in place? It absolutely does. In my one client's case, that was to the tune of $14,000 in just this one scenario. What could it be for you? Have a great day. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Profitable Women. Make sure you never miss an episode by hitting the follow button in your favorite podcast player. And things are always easier when you talk about them with a friend, so be sure to share this episode with them. If you're looking for more ways to grow your financial confidence, head to the show notes for a link to subscribe to our weekly email. Until next time.